When I turned 13, strange occurrences began to unsettle my once peaceful home. It started with voices that mimicked those of my sister and mother. At first, I thought nothing of it, assuming it was just my imagination playing tricks on me in the quiet of our house. But as days turned into weeks, the voices persisted. They called out to me from empty rooms, imitating conversations I had heard countless times before. Each time, I would respond instinctively, thinking my family members were trying to get my attention. The spirit's imitation was uncanny, almost too perfect to be real. It knew exactly how to mimic the cadence and tone of my loved ones' voices, luring me into conversation without me realizing it. At first, I found it amusing, a quirky phenomenon that added a strange twist to my otherwise ordinary life. Yet, as time went on, the frequency of these encounters increased. The spirit seemed to enjoy playing its game of imitation, calling out at odd hours when I was alone in the house. What had once been an amusing oddity now became unsettling, filling me with a growing sense of unease. Despite the fear creeping into my heart, I tried to rationalize the occurrences. Maybe it was the house settling, or the wind playing tricks on my ears. But deep down, I knew there was something more sinister at play. The voices were too deliberate, too targeted to be mere coincidence. As the days passed, the boundary between reality and the paranormal blurred. The spirit's imitation became a regular occurrence, a haunting reminder that something unseen shared our home. A presence that mimicked the ones I loved most, yet harbored intentions I could not fathom. As the weeks passed, the spirit's calls became more than just mimicry. They grew insistent, persistent, always striking when I was alone. I would hear my sister's laughter echoing down the hallway, or my mother's gentle call from the kitchen, only to find no one there when I hurried to respond. It wasn't long before the spirit's tricks escalated. It started knocking on doors, perfectly imitating the sound of my family members' familiar knocks, as if they were returning home unexpectedly. Each time, I would rush to open the door, expecting to see a loved one standing there, only to be greeted by emptiness and silence. The fear of the unknown began to consume me. What did this spirit want? Why was it imitating my family members? Was it trying to lure me into something sinister? Or was it merely playing a twisted game? I became hyper-aware of every sound, every movement in the house. The once familiar creaks and groans of the old building now carried a sinister undertone. Shadows seemed to linger in the corners of my vision, and the air felt heavy with an unseen presence. Night times were the worst. Alone in my room, I would hear whispers that sounded like conversations happening just beyond my door. The spirit's imitation of my loved ones' voices became a torment, a constant reminder of its eerie presence. I tried to confide in my family, but they brushed off my fears as childish imagination. No one else seemed to hear or feel what I was experiencing, deepening my sense of isolation and dread. With each passing day, the encounters grew more intense, more unsettling. The spirit's persistence in mimicking my family members became a chilling game of cat and mouse, leaving me on edge and questioning my sanity. One night, I found myself alone in my room, the air heavy with an unsettling silence. The echoes of the spirit's mimicry lingered in my mind, haunting me like a persistent shadow. As I lay in bed, trying to push away my mounting unease, I heard it again. The familiar voice calling out to me from the darkness. My heart raced as I listened, paralyzed with fear yet unable to ignore the beckoning call. The voice, so similar to my sister's, carried a strange urgency, pulling me deeper into its grip. I hesitated, torn between the instinct to flee and the morbid curiosity that kept me rooted in place. Then, as if in response to my hesitation, I felt it, a sudden, icy touch against my chest. A cold hand pressed firmly, unmistakably real despite the chill that accompanied it. The sensation sent shivers down my spine, freezing me in terror as the hand seemed to imprint its icy fingers on my pounding heart. I screamed, a raw, primal sound that tore through the silence of the night. Panic seized me as I scrambled out of bed, desperate to escape the spectral touch that lingered on my skin. The room felt oppressive, suffocating, as if the very air had turned against me in that moment of terror. In the aftermath, My mind raced with questions. What was this entity that could manifest physical sensations? Why had it chosen to touch me in such a chilling manner? The fear I had felt before was nothing compared to the stark reality of its touch, a tangible reminder of the malevolent presence that had invaded my life. As dawn broke, I found myself trembling, haunted by the night's events. The memory of that chilling touch would forever be etched into my mind, a testament to the horrors I had faced in the presence of an unseen force that mimicked the ones I loved, yet harbored intentions far more sinister. After the chilling touch, the atmosphere in the house shifted dramatically. Paranormal activity escalated with a vengeance, as if the spirit's unsettling touch had opened a gateway to darker manifestations. Shadows began to move unnaturally, twisting and contorting in ways that defied logic. I would catch glimpses of fleeting figures out of the corner of my eye, only for them to vanish when I turned to look directly at them. Objects started to inexplicably shift places. Books toppled from shelves, chairs slid across the floor, and doors slammed shut without any wind to propel them. Eerie noises echoed through the halls at all hours of the day and night, a chorus of whispers that seemed to rise and fall with the house's creaks and groans. Sometimes, the voices would converge into a cacophony of unintelligible murmurs, leaving me on edge and straining to decipher their hidden messages. The spirit's intentions remained murky, its presence growing more menacing with each passing day. What had once seemed like harmless mimicry had transformed into a relentless onslaught of paranormal phenomena. It felt as though the spirit's influence was seeping into every corner of my life, casting a shadow over my once peaceful existence. Sleep became elusive, haunted by vivid nightmares and the palpable sense of being watched. I would wake in the dead of night, drenched in sweat, with the unnerving sensation that unseen eyes were fixed upon me. The boundaries between waking and dreaming blurred, leaving me trapped in a perpetual state of fear and exhaustion. I sought answers from anyone who would listen, paranormal experts, spiritual guides, even skeptical friends, but no one could offer a definitive explanation. The spirit's motives remained elusive, its actions driven by a force beyond comprehension. As the days stretched into weeks, I found myself teetering on the brink of sanity. The relentless onslaught of paranormal activity had taken its toll, leaving me drained and desperate for respite from the unending terror that had gripped my life. But amidst the chaos and fear, one thing remained clear. The spirit's presence in my home was no longer benign. Its intentions, once shrouded in mystery, had morphed into something dark and foreboding, threatening to consume me entirely in its malevolent embrace. Desperate for answers and relief from the relentless haunting, I turned to every avenue available. Paranormal experts, spiritual guides, and even local practitioners of cleansing rituals became my last hope for restoring peace to my home. The experts arrived with their equipment and sage bundles, conducting thorough investigations and attempting to communicate with the spirit. They confirmed the presence of paranormal activity, documenting anomalies that defied conventional explanation. Yet, their efforts to communicate with the spirit or cleanse the house yielded mixed results. The encounters persisted, unabated by their interventions. Frustrated and exhausted, I faced a critical decision: to continue enduring the torment or to leave behind the haunted house that had become a prison of fear. The weight of sleepless nights and constant dread pushed me toward the latter. With a heavy heart and a sense of defeat, I made the gut-wrenching choice to move away, hoping to leave the malevolent spirit behind. The process of packing up my life was tinged with both relief and lingering apprehension. As I drove away from the house for the final time, a wave of mixed emotions washed over me. Relief to be free from the haunting, yet haunted by the memories of the chilling touch and the echoing voices that had tormented me. Despite leaving, the scars of that haunting experience remained etched into my psyche. The memory of the spirit's chilling touch on my chest and its uncanny imitation of loved ones' voices served as a stark reminder of the horrors I had faced. They were not just memories. They were a testament to the reality of the paranormal, a realm where the line between the living and the supernatural blurs in unsettling ways. Even now, in a new home and a seemingly normal life, I carry with me the knowledge that some encounters leave an indelible mark. The haunting voices and the chilling touch are not easily forgotten, serving as a cautionary tale to those who dare to delve into the mysteries beyond our understanding.
When I was 16, I lived next to a house where they frequently held spirit sessions. The eerie atmosphere and the strange visitors who came and went piqued my curiosity, but I mostly ignored it, focusing on my own life and school. The odd happenings next door were just part of the neighborhood's background noise. One afternoon, while I was home alone, I heard a loud knock on the door. It was so sudden and forceful that I jumped, my heart racing. I went to the door and opened it, expecting to see a delivery person or a neighbor, but there was no one there. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe it was a prank or just my imagination. A few minutes later, the knock came again, louder this time. I rushed to the door, flinging it open, only to find the doorstep empty. The street outside was eerily quiet, adding to my unease. My pulse quickened, and I closed the door, trying to shake off the creeping sense of dread. The third knock was the loudest yet, reverberating through the house. I hesitated before opening the door, my hand trembling on the knob. Once again, there was no one there. The empty porch seemed to mock me, and I felt a chill run down my spine. Something wasn't right. By the fourth knock, I was genuinely frightened. The sound echoed like a sinister drumbeat in the stillness of the house. I felt a primal urge to run, to escape whatever was causing these disturbances. Grabbing my backpack, I prepared to leave, my mind racing with fear and confusion. Just as I was about to step out, the door to my bedroom slammed shut with a force that echoed through the house. Startled, I spun around, my heart pounding in my chest. That's when I saw him, a man in a suit, walking through the wall as if it were made of air. His presence was ghostly, almost transparent, yet undeniably real. He moved with an eerie grace, his eyes fixed on me with an intensity that froze me in place. The air around him seemed to ripple, distorting his figure like a mirage. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body refused to obey. The room felt suddenly cold, the temperature dropping as if the very life was being sucked out of it. My breath came in shallow gasps, each one a struggle against the paralyzing fear that gripped me. I could see the man's lips moving, but no sound came out. His eyes bore into mine, and I felt a wave of dread wash over me, more powerful than anything I had ever experienced. My knees buckled beneath me, and the world began to spin. Darkness crept in from the edges of my vision, and I knew I was about to faint. The last thing I saw before the world went black was the ghostly figure gliding towards me, his form flickering like a candle in the wind. Then, everything went dark as I lost consciousness. The next day, I was still shaken from the previous night's encounter. I couldn't shake the image of the ghostly man from my mind. My sense of reality felt distorted, and I kept questioning whether it had all been a nightmare. As I was trying to make sense of it, a knock on the door startled me. I opened the door to find my neighbor standing there, her face etched with concern and regret. She was an older woman, someone I had seen often but never really spoken to. Her eyes were heavy with an unspoken apology as she introduced herself and asked if we could talk for a moment. "I'm so sorry to bother you," she began, her voice soft and hesitant, "but I need to apologize for something that happened last night." My heart skipped a beat. Did she know about the man I saw? I nodded, urging her to continue. "We were holding a spirit session next door," she explained, wringing her hands nervously. "We were trying to contact the father of one of our participants. But something went wrong. Instead of reaching him, we seem to have summoned a spirit to your house." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. The fear and confusion I had felt now turned into a mix of anger and disbelief. How could they be so careless? "I'm deeply sorry," she continued, her voice trembling. "We never meant for this to happen. We didn't realize the spirit would attach itself to your home. Please accept my sincere apologies for the intrusion." I could see genuine regret in her eyes. She seemed as shaken by the incident as I was, but that did little to calm my nerves. The reality of living next to a house involved in such activities was now unavoidable. I nodded slowly, trying to process everything. "Just, please be careful," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to go through that again." She promised they would take precautions in the future, but her assurance did little to ease my anxiety. As she left, I closed the door and leaned against it, feeling a mix of relief and lingering dread. The encounter had left a mark on me, one that wouldn't fade easily. For the next year, I lived in constant fear. Every creak of the floorboards and flicker of the lights seemed to signal the return of that ghostly figure. Shadows that once felt familiar now carried an ominous weight, as if they were hiding something just out of sight. My home, which had once been a place of comfort, had turned into a prison of anxiety and dread. I tried to reclaim my sense of security. I invited friends over more often, hoping their presence would dispel the eerie sensations that had taken hold of the house. I even consulted a priest and performed cleansing rituals, hoping to banish whatever spirit had invaded my life. Yet, despite my efforts, the feeling of being watched never truly left. Nights were the worst. I would lie in bed, eyes wide open, straining to catch any sound or movement that might signal another encounter. The darkness seemed to press in from all sides, suffocating me with its weight. Sleep became a rare and fitful thing, disrupted by nightmares and the ever-present fear of waking to see the man in the suit again. Even during the day, the fear lingered. I found myself jumping at the slightest noise, my heart racing with every unexpected sound. The once familiar surroundings of my home had become a landscape of terror, each corner and corridor a potential hiding place for the unseen. My dog, my constant companion through all this, seemed to share my unease. He would growl at seemingly nothing, his eyes tracking invisible movements in the air. His behavior only heightened my sense of dread, confirming that I wasn't imagining things. Despite all this, I couldn't bring myself to leave. Part of me hoped that the spirit would eventually move on, that I could reclaim my home and my peace of mind. But deep down, I knew that as long as I stayed, I would never escape the shadow of that night. Living in fear took its toll. My grades suffered, my relationship strained, and my once vibrant personality dulled under the weight of constant anxiety. I was a shell of my former self, haunted by something I couldn't see or understand. And through it all, the sensation of being watched persisted, a chilling reminder that the nightmare was far from over. A year later, I reached my breaking point and couldn't endure living in fear any longer. The decision to move out was agonizing but necessary. As I packed my belongings, the memory of the man in the suit haunted me like a persistent shadow. His ghostly presence had cast a pall over every corner of my life, and I knew deep down that leaving was the only way to find peace. As I carried the last box out of the house, a mix of emotions flooded my mind. Relief washed over me, knowing I was finally escaping a place that had never truly felt safe or welcoming. But beneath the relief, there was also sadness, a sense of loss for the home I had once cherished before it became a battleground of fear and uncertainty. Driving away from that house for the last time, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was leaving a part of myself behind. The memories of that terrifying encounter would stay with me forever, a haunting reminder of the fragility of our sense of security. Even now, years later, I often find myself wondering if the spirit still lingers in that old house, waiting for the next unwitting inhabitant to cross its path. I hope whoever lives there now has found a way to coexist peacefully with whatever unseen forces may reside within those walls. As for me, I carry the lessons of that experience with me, forever changed by the ghostly encounter that shaped my youth and taught me the true meaning of fear.